Stephen, as you sashay back, I just wanted to pick up on one of those points that you made about Havertz there, because I did a game at Stamford Bridge last season, and the press box is a little bit lower there, so you can have a different take on a game. And I made a point of watching Havertz for about 10 minutes. I think his movement is excellent. He makes some really clever runs, and you showed the examples from Saturday, but that is not an isolated incident, is it, in terms of how good his movement is?
Were you in the scouting department for Arsenal that day?
Yeah.
Because you obviously saw
getting a medal at the end of the season.
Yeah. But you've obviously seen what Arteta saw as well and thought, do you know what? There's parts of the game there where if we put the right players around them. The other one is incredible, is Jorginho. Like, everyone looking at Jorginho going, oh, he's too slow for the Premier League, he slows it down too much. And Mikel Arteta's gone, well, hang about, if I put runners round him who can do that work for him, tactically understands the game, get him on the ball to find space, then that'll work. And he's done exactly the same with Kai Havertz. I mean, I don't think enough has been made about those two signings because of Declan Rice. Everyone's talking about how good Declan Rice is, but because Jorginho was signed last year and he didn't win the league, it was deemed as a failure. Well, it's not a failure because it takes time to settle into the system and understand it. But those two in particular, Havertz and Jorginho, get the right players around them, players who can see things, who can execute things. Imagine playing in a space in and around Odegaard. You're going to get the ball, aren't you? If you're making the clever runs and making runs that are difficult to find at times, but you've got a player of that quality finding you, it's perfect.
And actually, the point about putting players around him, Sue, is that the one thing you would say about him is he's not the most natural finisher you're ever likely to see. But if you're getting goals from Saka, already equalled his tally from last season in 9 fewer games. You've got Gabriel Jesus, you've got Gabriel Martinelli, you've got Leandro Trossard as well. That Kai Havertz doesn't need to score 20 a season with all those guys there too.
Yeah, and I think that was a big talking point, wasn't it, before the sort of start of the year, was Arsenal need to sign a striker. If they're going to win the league, they have to bring in a number 9. And we sort of said on here, well, of course it would add to their options. Manchester City did it. They score lots of goals without Haaland, but then they bring Haaland in and score even more. But we were praising Arsenal last season because of the way that they split the goals up around the team, and that's exactly what they're doing.
It was asked again this year, though, wasn't it, where they had that little bit of a blip, and we had that discussion, didn't we?
A lot of conversations about Tony in January, wasn't there, and things like that.
Yeah.
At the other end, Stephen, and Sue's touched on the centre-half, so there was a great moment towards the end of the game where Gabriel makes a block and is sort of greeted as though he's just won the World Cup. Real big fist pumps and bumps into him from the other defenders, and they take such pride in keeping clean sheets, even if they know the game's already won.
Yeah, and I think there was a messaging came in from commentary saying that they could hear it from the sidelines, was how important it was to keep a clean sheet and to keep that mentality, because there's nothing more sort of psychological about going into a game knowing that Arsenal are hard to break down. Whereas when you go into a game against Liverpool, you go, we can get chances against them. We know we can take chances. If we can take one of those chances, then great. Whereas you look at Arsenal and you go, they're so hard to break down. They're so hard to create opportunities against. Psychologically, that's big going into a game. And I think that's something that's so important. I was at the Chelsea game yesterday. They don't pride themselves on keeping clean sheets. They don't care enough. It doesn't hurt them enough to try and keep a clean sheet. There's immense pride in there, whether it's just this might sound a bit cynical, whether it's for the sake of winning the Premier League, whether it's a clean sheet bonus, then sometimes it doesn't matter how it's done as long as you get to that point. They are magnificent in defence, they really are.
Sue, when we look at the fixtures and these sets of games, I think are ingrained in all of our minds now. We've looked at them so many times. I said it a couple of weeks ago that it felt like the away games would define their season. They've gone to the Etihad and drawn. They've won away at Brighton. It might all come down to the North London derby. Might come down to that game against Manchester United. Away games are decided, do you think?
Yeah, well, I think all Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester City are very good at home, and we had to predict, didn't we, last week, and sort of say, where could these teams...
I think mine's gone wrong already.
I'm shocked by that news.
But it was, where could these teams drop points? And it's difficult to predict. Yeah, it's a massive game against Tottenham, of course. What Chelsea team are going to turn up? The Aston Villa game straight away, it is going to be key. But yeah, I do feel that we've seen different sides to Arsenal this season. We've seen that sort of resilient, really well-organised side. We've seen the free-flowing football going forward. They've certainly learnt from their experience experiences of last season, and plus they've got a full quota pretty much to pick from, which is key for them if they need to rotate.
Just wanted to clarify, by the way, on that graphic, it does say Chelsea away, but it is at home, the Chelsea game for Arsenal. You wanted to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the one thing that's not in there is Champions League.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And that could have a big bearing on this.
Yeah.
So you've got Real Madrid for Manchester City, Bayern Munich, and then the potential of both teams meeting each other. That could swing the title. And it sounds daft because it's not even in the Premier League, but the focus going into those games could just take the attention away from what's going on in the Premier League. Mikel Arteta and Guardiola will say it won't, but for the players, that could be huge.
Who do you think is going to win the Champions League?
Man City.
Sue?
Man City.
Okay.